Hey everyone, welcome. I want to start with a question. Does your body feel like home? Not is it at the maximum or best optimal weight? Do your clothes fit? Uh, are you doing everything right? So many women feel like a stranger in their own body. And I want to know, does your body feel like it's a place you can live in? Many women don't feel like that and they don't feel comfortable in their body and they feel like it's their fault. I absolutely do not believe that it's their fault. And thank you for joining me here. I'm Jennifer Seven. I am a health coach. I am a postmenopausal woman. I have been sitting with women for over 20 years, helping them get their health back. And this is the Menopause Map. Just to give you a little background about me, I grew up in a family that suffered through not knowing that my family had came from poverty, from poor nutrition, and from not having a language with which to understand what was going on. And my mother, well, we had cancer in the family, we had diabetes, we had heart disease. My mother, in particular, and her side of the family really suffered with heart disease and diabetes. And she also suffered from that and had several strokes and had finally the final stroke, which actually took her from us. And that was very sad. And I experienced a lot of grief over that. I felt like she didn't have a map for her health and her life. And that really empowered me, or gave me the passion to want to start asking different questions, to start to create a map for women in particular, and for myself. I also have a child who, although he's grown now, suffered with ADHD and different issues. And that also caused me to start to look at different questions, such as what is he eating? What is his inflammation? What's causing inflammation? Is it food? Is his body trying to tell us? So there's symptoms that are just not random. They are signals. And what I do want to ask you, and you can drop it in the chat if you'd like, is does the question about your body feeling like home, does that sit with you? Does your body feel like home? I'd love for you to drop that in the chat if you'd like to answer. I have worked with women for over 20 years. I have built a company. I organized health programs. I have sat across the room from more than 1,000 women, and I've heard their stories. And what I've heard is I've heard them tell me over and over again, I've tried everything and I still feel like I'm failing. But they weren't failing, they were unsupported. I want to help women find their own menopause map. I think this matters just almost more than anything that I've heard is that women feel like they're failing, they're not supported, and that just really troubles me. And I want to help change that. So we've got to help women find their map, and I had to find my own map. So my own menopause journey was quite perimenopause journey to menopause to postmenopause. It's quite the journey. And as I've been helping women for 20 years go through their own perimenopause, their menopause, and postmenopause, I was going through it as well, but I didn't have my own map. I suffered from waking up at 3 a.m., terrible sleep, just terrible, not feeling like myself, body changes that no one prepared us for. And guess what? I was the wellness coach. I should know those things. But we haven't been given this language, this information, this map to get through all of these body changes. And, it's not just menopause. We as women, we have been left without a map since we were young women. Think about your first period. Think about pregnancy. Think about postpartum. And then there's perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. We weren't given much of a map for our period. I can remember, and this will make you laugh probably, but I got no conversation, no information from my mother about a period. I think I got a little bit from school, but I'll just put this out there that one day I saw in the trash there was a box and it said sanitary napkins on it. And I was curious, what the heck is a sanitary napkin? So I went to my mom and I said, "What's this?" And I guess at that point she decided she had to educate me. And so she handed me a little pamphlet. I don't know where she picked it up. That must have maybe come with the box at some point that gave you a little bit of information about it. But that was my education about, getting a period. And my periods were difficult, very difficult. I had bad cramps. They were heavy. My mother didn't have any of that. I was the oldest girl. So I didn't get a lot of empathy or sympathy for my terrible cramps. And you know how embarrassing it is, and you don't want to talk to anyone about it. So we didn't have the language to discuss that. And we do get a lot of language and mapping about pregnancy, about what's going to be happening in the delivery, but we don't necessarily get a lot of information about the hormones and what's happening inside and how we may be feeling. And I don't think we get much in terms of language or mapping for postpartum. And as much as a baby is a blessing, and I couldn't wait to have my baby, wow, does your body go through a lot? And there are women that have postpartum depression and negative feelings, and it's very difficult and troubling. And how much shame goes with that? How much embarrassment? How unlikely are we to talk about that? Because that must mean we're a bad mother. So there's not a lot of language or mapping for that postpartum piece. And then we start going into perimenopause, and this is now beginning to be talked about, but certainly when I was going through it, clueless, clueless about all of these symptoms that we now know can be attributed to perimenopause: anxiety, depression, mood swings, we know hot flashes, that's very common, lack of sleep, dry skin, itchy ears, dry eyes. It just goes on and on and on. And we're not given that. We're not given any preparation for it. Our doctor doesn't sit down with us and say, "Hey, by the way, you're getting to the age. Let me give you some information on perimenopause. Let me ask you how you're feeling. Let me tell you that could very well be perimenopause." Doctors aren't educated on this in medical school. They get very little. So we're just told, "Suck it up, buttercup." We're given a pat on the head, "Yeah, you're having some hot flashes. They'll pass eventually. Go home. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. You're drenched at work because you're having a hot flash. Oh, well, that'll pass." Your face turns red. You're humiliated and embarrassed if you're in a work meeting and suddenly, you're on fire, can't sleep. So many symptoms that go along with perimenopause. And then menopause is it's 1 year after you've had that last period, and then you're officially menopause. But then guess what? The rest of our life is post menopause, and we're given no map for that. I can't tell you how many women say, "Oh yeah, I'm post menopause. I'm done with all that." But honestly, there's so much more to it, and we don't have a map for that. So women they just get fragments. They might get just complete silence. We don't have the language. So we start to turn all of our symptoms into shame. And when we can't sleep, when we can't think, when we can't recognize ourselves, we can't find joy, then what do? As women, we start to blame ourselves. There must be something wrong with me. And ladies, if you're listening, that stops right now. This is not our fault. It's happening to us. in my menopause map, what I am doing is identifying 5 floors for women to begin to focus on and look at. And one is sleep, one is food and blood sugar, one is your strength, stress and nervous system play a huge role, and your joy floor. So these floors are talking points. They're not rules. They're not perfect plans. They're not meant to be a perfect plan. They are minimum support. They are places that where women often leak life. And ladies, if you're not having joy, joy is not a luxury. Joy is information. And we're going to build that map together, one conversation at a time. I want you to know you are not lazy. Hear me when I say this. You are not lazy. You are leaking life, and there's a difference. So if you've ever called yourself lazy when you're actually exhausted, I want you to put not lazy in the chat if you'd like. So what does leaking life actually mean? It's things that are invisible, invisible energy drains that women they're not taught to name. We don't have names for it. It could be that 3 a.m. waking. This has just been a killer for me. 3 a.m., I wake up, it's like I'm wide awake and my head spins. Like I'm having my own personal board meeting in my head and I cannot get myself back to sleep. And then I'm beating myself up because I can't get back to sleep. And I feel like I'm already setting the day up for disaster because I can't sleep. And whose fault is it? It's mine because I woke up and I can't get back to sleep. So 3 a.m. wakings, blood sugar swings. This is a time where we've got to start to learn how to regulate our blood sugar because it can make a big difference. Brain fog, huge. Starting to forget things, forget words, forget where you were. You go in a room to do something and you don't remember why you're there. I've done this 100 times. I have to go back to where I was to jog my memory. Not being able to access words. And this can really play a big factor in work. And we are beginning to lose our confidence because we're like, what is going on? And then we get anxious and nervous and stressed. Maybe feeling more hungry, feeling more unlike ourselves. How about our nervous system being on high alert? We're stressed, our cortisol is high. We're holding everything as women. We hold everything for everyone else. And do you ever wonder, when is someone going to hold it for me? When is someone going to hold something for me? The truth, these are not character flaws, they're signals. Our body is speaking to us. And when we have no language for it, when nobody names them, then women tend to fill in the blank with, I must not be trying hard enough. Women that are running on empty call themselves lazy. And they're not lazy. As I said before, you are not lazy. You are leaking life from one of these unsealed floors, or it could be more than one of these floors. I want to tell you a little story. It's my parking lot story. So I'm in full menopause. I've had a very full day, meeting with clients, very busy, meeting after meeting after meeting. I was on point, showed up for all of my clients, showed up for my staff, showed up for everyone. And I went to my car and I sat down and I went home and I just sat there. I couldn't get out of my car. Nothing was technically wrong. I was just done. I was done. I had nothing left. I had given it all away and I just was drained. And of course, I'm thinking, what the heck? What is wrong with me? Gosh, maybe I'm just getting old. Maybe this is what life feels like now that I'm post menopause. But guess what? We're not just getting old. We're running without a foundation. And I really want to show you how to start. So that's what this podcast is and is going to be. Not a lecture, not a medical class, not a polished menopause talk. I want it to be a conversation about what we as women are carrying, and we're carrying it silently and quietly. I want to start to bring in some light into this so that you know you're not alone. You know these things are not your fault. And wouldn't it be nice if we could start to talk about these things that have been so deeply personal, so deeply shameful, so deeply embarrassing? I want to bring into the light the embarrassing things, the unexpected bleeding and leaking and soiled clothes, the lack of sex drive, the dryness, the confusing things, the incidents where we forget, the hot flashes in the middle of a board meeting, the symptoms that we as women just whisper about, the things that we may find ourselves Googling at 3 a.m. because we're awake at 3 a.m. because we can't sleep. Um, and all of the things that women are afraid to ask out loud. We all have so much that we're experiencing. Wouldn't it feel good to have a community where we can talk about these things freely and feel supported? Why do they have to feel shameful and embarrassing? And they are. I mean, I have some good stories and I'm going to be sharing them. I have 20 years of listening and sharing with women about these things, and I want to hear the stories, and I want to help us feel that we're not leaking life, and that we're not failing, and that we're not lazy. I can't wait to share these stories with you, actually. So, if you'd like, put in the chat what's one thing that you wish someone had told you about your body before midlife. That would be my first question for you. My second question would be, what did you have to figure out alone that you should never have had to figure out alone? Probably mine was the heavy, horrific bleeding that came with perimenopause. Ah, my doctor was like, "Yeah, you should have an ablation." I'm like, I don't necessarily want surgery. Is there anything else we can do?" And that was the response, was just like, "Let's just go straight to a surgical procedure." But I stayed with that because I thought, "Oh gosh, that's me failing if I can't stop this." But it just got worse and worse and worse, and I was really getting no support. So, some good stories along that line. And then I want you to know that this map, this menopause map, it belongs to all of us. I'm just going to be the one holding the pen. I'm just going to be guiding. It's our map. Next week, I'm going to talk about the things that women were taught to hide, starting with the very first time most of us are learned that our bodies were something to be embarrassed about. So that's probably when we were getting our periods, when we were very young. And if that lands for you, I would love for you to subscribe here on Substack to the Menopause Map so that you never miss an episode. And if you want to know which of your foundations may need the most support right now, I do have a free 2-minute menopause map assessment, and the link is in my Substack. I want you to know you were never given the map. I'm here to help you draw one. And I will see you next week on the next live.